Go, Fritz.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
The Bears. The Bears.
I am the great Cornholio.
We'll see what happens.
Playoffs?
See, Sean McDonough, Jay Billis. Goats!
Can you play a song? Something cool. Put my mic on!
I'm calling both games.
Goes down the field for Smith.
Oh, he got it!
Seattle. We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
Anyway, so I wanted to get to the 2-0 teams, which teams are for real and which ones I need to see more from. And there are a handful of 2-0 teams so far. And there's one 3-0 team because they played last night. Look at the NFC West. 3 out of the 4 teams in the NFC West are 2-0. Cardinals, Rams, 49ers. The Buccaneers are 2-0. The Panthers just advanced to 3-0 last night. And then you got the Raiders and Broncos as well at 2-0. So as for the AFC, the Raiders might have a legit chance to win the AFC West. And no, I'm not on drugs. I really believe that. You look at, Derek Carr. And going into Week 3, Derek Carr was leading the NFL in passing yards with over 800 yards in passing, leading the league. Second place was Kyler Murray with 689. So that just gives you a little bit of perspective of how good Derek Carr has been. And I want to point out something more to that because in the first half of Week 1, Derek Carr didn't look super sharp, right? And he really turned that game around for them, leading them to the overtime winner against the Ravens. But then again, playing Pittsburgh, it was a Derek Carr effort. If Derek Carr wasn't the quarterback for the Raiders, they wouldn't have a shot to win that game because Josh Jacobs was injured and the running game really didn't have much going for them that game. It was really, really all Derek Carr. As I said a few weeks ago, the Raiders have that gritty perseverance, and you can never count them out. And we saw that in the first 2 games of the season, especially in the Ravens game. Everybody saw that, at least. I would hope so. In the Steelers game, that was kind of a back and forth game, and until the very end when the Raiders took control. The rushing game has been off to a little bit of a rough start due to the Josh Jacobs injury, but even without Josh Jacobs and their leading rusher and without having a decent rushing attack, right? I mean, I think Week 1, I think Josh Jacobs may have been the leading rusher, but I don't think he even had I don't know if he had over 50 yards, right? Like the second best rusher on Monday Night Football Week 1 was, take a wild guess, Marcus Mariota, who I kind of forgot about until he ran 31 yards down the field. But so that just kind of puts it in perspective. Like, their rushing game has not been off to a great start. But even with that, they've been able to move the ball down the field and score against, and not just move the ball down the field and score, but against, to start the season, playing 2 historically good defensive teams, right? Just looking at the Ravens in the past, you've got Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs, right? Ravens are known for their defense year in and year out. With or without the injuries, it doesn't matter what it is. They're still known for their defense. Pittsburgh, same thing. In years past, Troy Polamalu, not Justin Harrison. I'm blanking on his first name. The big linebacker, number 92, Harrison. Why can't I remember his name? This is really irritating me. But anyway, you get the point. The Steelers and Ravens are 2 historically good defensive teams, and the Raiders go in and are able to move the ball down the field. Not just move the ball down the field in the game, but in crunch time when it really mattered, when the defense steps up. The Raiders have just been able to overcome that. And, if they can overcome that, I think they've got a decent chance in the AFC West. And Derek Carr leads the league going into Week 3 in passing yards, right? So you think, oh man, their receivers must be really doing well too, right? A few of them have gotten 100-yard rushing or 100-yard receiving games, but none of them really stood out with like a 300-yard game. Week 1, Darren Waller was the leading receiver, and you may think, okay, he maybe had about 200 passing or 200 yards, right? No, he only had 105 yards and 1 touchdown. Week 2, Henry Ruggs only had 113 yards and 1 touchdown. And both of those guys in those 2 weeks were the leading receiver. And yet Derek Carr has over 800 yards of passing this year. So what that shows me is he's not dialed in. He's not tunnel vision in on one guy. He's not focused on getting the ball to one receiver to lead the team. What that shows me is a guy who leads the league in passing yards, and no guy in the first 2 weeks has had like over 200 yards in receiving. What that tells me is that it is a balanced attack. It is a balanced attack by Gruden and Carr, where they are not just focused on getting, they don't go out there and say, okay, get Darren Waller the ball as much as you can, or go out and get Henry Ruggs III the ball as many times as you can. Derek Carr and John Gruden go out and they like to spread it around, right? And you can do that when you have as much talent as they do. But again, not a huge running game, no earth-shattering receiver stats, and yet the Raiders are surprisingly good because they have a balanced attack through the air. They are not, they can hit you with any guy on their team. It doesn't, they don't rely on one receiver to carry them through the game, and if he goes down, it's like, oh, well, we're done now. No. They have a balanced attack, and they methodically go down the field. And, I mean, the Raiders look about as good as you could have ever hoped for. And, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they gave the Chiefs a good run for their money. Because the Chiefs I don't know what it is, but in the first 2 weeks, the Chiefs haven't looked like the Chiefs that we're accustomed to seeing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Ravens fan and we beat them, but I mean that because they played the Browns, right? And, the Browns kind of shocked them a little bit. And, Patrick Mahomes, he looks very beatable for the first time in his career. And it doesn't have anything to do with talent lost. Like, they got better on the offensive line. They got, they still have many of those same weapons they had last year, right? Kelsey, Pringle, Hardman, Hill, Edwards-Helaire. Again, as I said, they picked up some guys for the offensive line, and their defense is good as well, right? We saw Tyrann Mathieu have a field day against the Ravens last week. And yet the Raiders have a shot at giving the Chiefs a good run for their money. Another team in the AFC West that's 2-0 is the Denver Broncos. And, sure, some people will look at that and be like, wow, I can't believe they're 2-0, right? But then you look at their season and you look at their schedule and you're like, oh, okay, I can kind of understand why they're 2-0. They've opened the season against the Giants and the Jaguars. Both teams are 0-2. So for me, at least, the Broncos still need to prove more to be taken seriously as a team who is a contender for the playoffs this year. Right? Week 3, they play the Jets. Very winnable game again. If they go 3-0, it wouldn't shock me. Week 4 is when they're going to have their first real test because they're playing Baltimore. And, again, I'm not just saying that because I'm a Ravens fan, but if anybody can look at their schedule and say, okay, Giants, Jags, Jets, Ravens, which team is a real test to you, right? I'll ask you, what team do you think is the real test out of the Ravens, Jets, Jags, and Giants? It's pretty simple to me. And so I think when the Broncos play the Ravens, I think that is when we're going to see their true colors. Is Teddy Bridgewater really all about what we think he is? Or is he just going out and beating these teams that anybody can beat? But with that being said, I got to give Teddy Bridgewater credit. He's bounced around a lot. He had that really bad injury so long ago. But that hasn't discouraged him. He's looked pretty solid in the first 2 games of the season. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Teddy Bridgewater later in the show when we get to the fantasy segment, so stay tuned for that. The NFC 2-0 teams, right? As I said, you got 3 of them in the NFC West. The Bucks look about as well-oiled of a machine as you can hope for. In my book at least, they are, the reigning champs are the Super Bowl favorites, I think, because, they go out and, the Cowboys obviously were preparing a long time for that game, right? They didn't play Dak all preseason because they wanted him to be ready for that game. Tom Brady top 5 in passing yards going into week 3. And, like I said last week, the guy might play till he's eligible for Social Security. The guy might play till the NFL is over, right? Tom Brady looks like a robot. You know, he hasn't like ever looked bad in his career. And if he has, it's been for what, one or two games. He hasn't looked bad for like a whole season. We're like, oh man, that's not Tom Brady. Who's that? You know, the Bucks, obviously front runners in their division. You know, the Panthers are 3-0, but I'll get to them in a little bit. And again, they didn't lose a lot of guys. You know, they still got Fournette, they still got Antonio Brown, they got Gronk, they got Evans, they got Godwin. I think it's Godwin, right? But anyway, whether it's Goodwin, Godwin, whoever it is, the point is they got good talent. And Bruce Arians with you know, his whole little strap set up across his chest, looks like he's getting ready for you know, space launch or whatever over there. Doesn't matter. The guy's a genius. Bucks, they might repeat the Super Bowl, because you look at the NFC, and I don't know about you, but there's no team where I'm saying, man, they're going to give a Bucks a good run for their money. They're just, at least right now, I mean, it's only week 3, but right now there's no team where I look at and say, man, that's the team. That's it. Right now I look at the team and who says that's the team? It's the Bucks. The Rams, I'm sorry, the Bucks, yeah. It's Panthers. Let's get to the Panthers because they're in the same division. My bad, excuse me. Week 1 they played Jets. Nobody really knew what to think about the Jets. And, you know, Jets right now, you know, team that is beatable, obviously. So that doesn't really, you know, prove too much to me. Then they played a Saints team that, again, nobody really knows what to think about. You know, they go out and they embarrass the Packers. And, you know, coming out of that, the Panthers-Saints game, I got to be wondering, was Jameis Winston, you know, was that a fluke game? You know, did Jameis Winston go into that first game like really dialed in, really focusing? Okay, you know, I got to prove myself. I've been behind Drew Brees for a year. I better come out and look good, right? And then he comes out and has a heck of a game week 1. Does he say, oh, man, I got this? Does he kind of lay off a little bit and say, okay, I got this. I'm back, bro. You know what I mean? Like, does he have that kind of swagger going into week 2, and then he gets shown up because he's a little too relaxed? Is he? You know, you got to be wondering, was he too cocky going into week 2? Just something to think about. So, you know, nobody really knows what to think about the Saints. You know, the Saints are a team that you could look back and say, wow, that's a really good win for them, how they blew them out like that. Or it's a team that you could look back and say, that doesn't really do anything for me. Last night they destroyed the Texans, but so what? Anybody can destroy the Texans. Anybody should destroy the Texans right now, especially when they don't have Tyrod Taylor and they got a quarterback that I've never heard of starting before. Like, does anybody know who Davis Mills is? Because I think the only people who know who Davis Mills is are Chargers fans, and Chargers fans don't exist. So, like, the Texans are just a dumpster fire right now. Nobody really cares about them. I don't even think the coaching staff or the front office cares about the Texans. So the point is, they had 3 games that are cupcake games. And, like, for me, that just doesn't mean anything. So, you know, and I was looking at their schedule, and they don't have a real test, like a real deal test, until week 10. 10! Not week 5, not week 6, week 10, when they play the Cardinals. And the schedule looks like this for them. Week 4, they play the Cowboys. Again, Cowboys, yeah, sure, they're a decent team, right? But that's a team that you look at and say, they're beatable. They're not a team that you look at and say, okay, we really got to focus. We really got to get ready for that game, right? Sure, it might be a little tough, but the Cowboys are a team that I think is beatable for the Panthers. Because the Panthers have talent. If the Panthers were just a team that was weak and they won 2 games against cupcakes, I'd say, no way. Like the Broncos. Like, if the Broncos were playing the Cowboys, I would say, okay. I don't think they have it in them to beat the Cowboys. But the Panthers, I think the Panthers are being really overlooked right now. If they're going to make any noise, though, they're going to need Christian McCaffrey to be healthy. And, you know, I'm not really sure where he's at after his injury last night. But, you know, they're going to need him if they're going to take care of business against Dallas next week, or if they're going to beat Dallas. Week 5, they play the Eagles. Again, beatable. Week 6, the Vikings. The Vikings are on too. They're very beatable, as we saw. You know, they were close against the Bengals, and they gave the Cardinals a good run for their money. But the Cardinals, I got to say, the Cardinals helped them out a little bit last week. Panthers can beat the Vikings. Week 7, they play the Giants. Again, very beatable. Week 8, they play the Falcons. That should be a cupcake. Week 9, they play the Patriots. okay, maybe that's a little bit more difficult than playing the Falcons, Giants, and all those teams. And then again, week 10, you got the Cardinals. So, like, going into week 10, I would not be shocked if they are 7-2, right? That the worst case scenario in my book, worst case scenario, the Panthers going into that Cardinals game are 7-2. And that's not bad. That's not a bad worst case scenario for the Panthers. You're going in to week 10 7-2, and you still have 2 games against the Bucs. That's not bad by any means.